Hello, I'm Tundra, and as you may have already read in the thumbnail of this video, today I will talk about a question that some people ask themselves. Why is Japan so great technologically and commercially in general? Some think it is because being from Asia and connecting with several countries that are also advanced, such as China and South Korea. I will have the pleasure of answering it in this video. Without further ado, let's begin. To understand the reasons for the great progress that Japan has made in the last 30 years, we will have to divide the topic in three parts, which are 1. The point that changed everything, 2. Rise and peak, 3. The present. Starting with the first part, which is the point that changed everything, we have to focus on the decade of the 40s, where at that time Japan was already a quite recognized country, particularly for its culture and its government at that time, which was a huge nation known as the Japanese Empire or the Nation of the Rising Sun, which was managed by Emperor Hirohito Showa, who at that time had one of the largest military forces not only on the continent but also in the world in general. In order not to go too far into what everyone already knows about the war, the attack of Hiroshima, and so on, I will only say that after that incident that caused hundreds of deaths and injuries, at the end of the war, Japan and the United States will sign a distribution and trade agreement that will help Japan from the disasters caused by the war, and this will also benefit the Japanese to advance in the technology part, since with the agreement signed with the United States, the architectural advances that mean almost the reconstruction of the entire country was so fast that it even economically boosted the value of the yen, that is the official currency of Japan. With these advances, Japan's course will begin to take a different path, going from being a country with an empire and established but not non-commercial nation to being a country that today is one of the greatest powers in the world, and with a distribution and marketing that has already crossed borders beyond that was imagined to become superior on an economic level. This is where the Japan that we all know today begins to appear, and that takes us to the next part, which is our rise and peak. In the decade of the 50s and 60s, the most famous brands in Japan in technology began to be founded. Among them were television brands such as Sony and Toshiba. Also in the automobile field, there were already brands such as Toyota, Honda, Mazda, Nissan, among others. The reconstruction of the country was such that its brands and the factories where they built all their products began to have headquarters in the United States, since, as mentioned before, the Americans were very important in all of this that I am mentioning. Among the audiovisual media, they were not left behind, since at that time Japanese animators took as reference the animation made by Disney and Warner Bros. Abroad. At that time, the vast majority of those films always had a more romantic theme from usual, and it's not to say that those movies are bad, no. It happens that compared to today, we are accustomed to the fact that Japanese movies are always about more action and fights, not all of them, and we owe that to a person named Osamu Tezuka with 1960 rated well for many is the first anime of the history, was Astro Boy. Japan gradually changed this image from a cultural but not advanced country to being a culturally striking country with its own identity and being one of the most advanced countries in the world. Another thing that I almost forgot to mention is that part of the reconstruction of the country was not only the Americans, logically, but also that it was thanks to the discipline of the Japanese people. You see, they are not only great just for the sake of it, they are known for being extremely disciplined with regard to work, studies, and administrative management. Its people, apart from being educated and noble, also do everything possible to give their best, and it is clear that they make a lot of effort to be a nation that, if you see graphically, is somewhat small, but in terms of population it is enormous and has crossed borders of all kinds the world. So that only shows his incredible effort and discipline. Going back to the beginning, we already saw what his change and his growth were in every scene. Now we have to talk about the last part, which is his current situation. Currently, Japan is one of the most important countries both industrially and culturally. If you think about it, since they began to revolve, they have not stopped growing because they have also wanted to expand in other areas, such as sports and playable areas. It is perhaps, along with the United States and Canada, the country where the most video games are developed and also the most developer in terms of consoles and arcade machines. All of this is thanks to not only discipline, which is also important, but also because they always think big. If they believe they can do something, they achieve it, and that is already part of their identity. They have also been able to hold array sporting events such as the Olympic Games that, despite the difficulties that we already know about, managed to hold the event normally. Even though Japan is a great country in every sense, it has never been saved from tragedies, since it is known for being one of the countries that suffers the most tsunamis and earthquakes daily, the most recent being the one that happened at the beginning of this year. Despite disasters, they always know how to get back up from the great blows they suffer, and they manage to recover no matter how serious the situation is, because they always think big, and as a united nation, they say, all together we can do the impossible. And you know what? They are right. And this video ends here. For those who wonder where I got the idea for this video, it was from a studio presentation that I did a couple of years ago, and that was the inspiration to make this video. And if you liked this video, I would like to know by giving it a like, and also so that you can share it if it helped you with a job or a task. You can also follow me on my other social networks that I will leave in the description part, and without further ado, I say goodbye and we will see in the next video. Ciao Macarao!